Welcome back to Graya Veda. We're going to continue our discussion about the chart that we were looking at, which was this Libra ascendant chart that you can see on the screen. And in this Libra ascendant chart, in the previous video, we had spoken about and assessed the strength of the ascendant and the moon. In this video, we will talk specifically about relationship and look at the static promises in the chart, and then also talk about some of the questions that this person had related to the relationships. Um, if you like this video and if you like the way that I'm presenting this, I wanted to share that I'm starting the second batch of my Fundamentals of Vedic Astrology course in the next month. So if you'd like to register for it, just send me a message, drop a comment, I'll reach out. My email address is in the description below. And like, share, subscribe if this content resonates with you and if you're learning something. All right. So going back to our initial framework, we always analyze three things at a very basic minimum when we are um, evaluating the results of a house. Now, there are many more things, but I can't go into detail in this video. The three basic things are the bhav, the bhavesh, and the karaka. In English, that means the house, the lord of the house, bhavesh, and the karaka or the significator or the fixed significator, right? I like to think of these as carrying 33.33% weight. Um, in determining the outcomes or the results or the fruits from the house. So the house itself it becomes easier to think about the results if you think about in these terms. Let's say the house carries 33.3% weightage. The house lord carries 33.3% weightage, and the significator also carries 33.3% weightage. Now, for some houses, there's not just one fixed significator. There are many fixed significators, and depending on the question that you're evaluating or the area of life representative from that house that you're evaluating, you'll pick the significator that you want to analyze. Um, in our case, we are talking about the seventh house. So, in the seventh house, the first 33.3% is we'll check who all influences the seventh house itself, right? So, what are the effects of other planets or influences of other planets on the seventh house? That's the first thing we'll check. We'll also check if any planet is positioned in the seventh house, because a planet can also influence through position. Then we'll go to the seventh lord and we'll see where the seventh lord is positioned. We'll see what influences are on the seventh lord. And finally, we'll talk about the Karak fixed significator of the seventh house, which is this planet, and what influences are on this planet. And then we'll also analyze Jupiter, and I'll tell you why as we go through this whole analysis. Finally, we'll look at these combinations and these planets in the Navamsha chart, and we'll also evaluate the Navamsha chart and its seventh house briefly. Okay, that should give us a good picture. Finally, one more thing I forgot, we will also look at all of this, not just from the ascendant, but also the perspective of the moon. Um, Two reasons for that. One, it is given in the classics that you must always read the chart from the moon's perspective by making the position of the moon as the ascendant. Second reason is that in this chart, like we discussed in the previous video, the moon has a source of strength. In fact, you can see down below here in Shadbal that the moon has a pretty high score, and as does the ascendant lord itself. Okay, so let's begin. The first thing, as I said, we want to see is the influence on the seventh house. So let's find out which planets influence the seventh house. And for that, we need to know which planets and how planets aspect. Every planet aspects seven places from itself. So by knowing that rule, we know that Venus aspects the seventh house. That's a good thing for the seventh house because Venus is not just the planet that aspects not just a natural benefic that aspects the seventh house. It is actually the ascendant lord that aspects the seventh house. And also, it is the fixed significator or karak of the seventh house. These three combinations make this aspect or influence very, very positive for the seventh house. So we like to see that. Let's see if there are any other influences on the seventh house. So, by aspect, there are no other influences on the seventh house because there is no other planet that aspects the seventh house. Saturn aspects 3, 7, and 10th places from itself. So Saturn does not aspect this. Mars aspects 4, 7, and 8 places from itself. So it does not aspect. Jupiter aspects 5, 7, and 9 places from itself. So that does not aspect. And Rahu and Ketu aspect 5, 7, 9 places from themselves. So they don't aspect either. Moon aspects the seventh position. Mercury and Sun aspect the seventh position. So the only thing that aspects or influences the seventh house is the ascendant lord or the significator or the um, natural benefic Venus. This is a very, very good combination. Now, you might wonder so the concern that this person has had was that I have many relationships, but I don't have a long term relationship that I can settle down in. And when we look at this natural benefic, which is also the significator and also the ascendant lord aspecting or influencing as the only influence on the seventh house, we wonder that should help formulate the promise of marriage. So why is the marriage not happening? We'll come back to that in a second. The other thing that we should remember is that while this is the house of marriage and contracts and partnerships, um, the fifth house really is the house of love, romance, and relationships. And we see that in the fifth house, there is a natural benefic planet, right? There is no other influence on the fifth house. So the fifth house here gives a lot of the relationships and it's positive. And the seventh house is also positive. So they say that they have a lot of relationships, but nobody settles down. So something else must be, and they're not married right now. They're already 39 years of age. They're not married. So this is a female's chart. So that tells me that there is a aspect of delay here as well. And we all know that the planet of delay, or if you don't know, the planet of delay is Saturn. So there might be Saturn's influence somehow. We don't see it in the aspect, but it might be somehow and somewhere else. Okay, so we'll try to find where that is as well. Um, so now that we've checked the 33.3% of um, the house, let's see whether we can look at the house lord as well and what's going on with it. Okay. So let's focus our attention now to the Lord of the seventh house, okay? And the Lord of the seventh house is the sign Mars in there. So, sorry, the sign of Aries in there. Aries is a sign that denotes passion. It denotes, it's a masculine sign. So, this person's desire to be in a relationship that's full time is very strong because of Aries in here, which is also apparent from the conversations that we've had with them. The Lord of Aries is Mars. Mars goes and sits in the third house. Now, in the previous video, I did discuss this briefly, but that was in the context of how Mars sitting in the third house is good for the native for self effort and gives them courage. Now we are looking at it from the perspective of marriage as the seventh lord. So, in either case, we did analyze last time that there is no planet that influences Mars. And Mars's position in the third house is not bad for Mars because it's a house, it's a mild malefic house, but it's also the house of courage, self-effort, things of that sort. And Mars's energies in this house are harmonious to the house. So Mars going in in the third house is not bad. It's actually good. The other thing is that Mars not just goes to the seventh house, it goes 9 places from this house. 7, 8, 9. And when that happens, that also strengthens this house. So, two factors that we've seen that strengthen this house: A, it gets aspect of the natural benefic Venus, it has no other aspect. It gets the influence of the ascendant lord, which is also Venus, no other aspect. It gets the aspect of its significator, which really strengthens the house, no other aspect. And its lord, Mars, is unafflicted and it's in a good position. So 33.3% that is the weightage of the house is looks positive. 33.3% weightage of the Lord looks positive. So what's the problem here? And this is where you start asking yourself the question, do I have the right birth time? Because what the person is describing and what we are seeing in the chart is not lining up. And it could be possible that the birth time here is a little bit off because um, it's 8 a.m. I believe. Yeah, it's 8 a.m. And usually when you see birth times that are rounded off like that, it could be a few minutes here and there. What happens with a few minutes here and there is that the divisional charts change. So the experience of life changes. In other cases, the ascendant also changes. Do you see over here the ascendant is as 3 degrees 30 minutes? I believe the span is 2 hours. So if it's off by some time, then the ascendant could also change. But we will stick right now with the assumption that the ascendant is correct and the birth time is correct, because otherwise we can't continue the discussion. Now we also now will quickly go to the significator, which is the third component of it. And significator we've already analyzed because the significator is Venus. And earlier we saw that Venus was hemmed by malefics. So now this is that one negative that we are seeing is that there is malefic hemming of the significator. But is that enough to deny a long-term marriage? No. The other thing is that while this is the significator, we saw that the significator is exalted in um, Navamsha. Also, the Navamsha's seventh house has an exalted planet in it, which is Moon. And the Navamsha seventh lord, Venus, is actually also exalted. So this exaltation means that there is strength in the seventh house of Navamsha. Now, of course, the problem here is that the Navamsha Lord, which is Navamsha ascendant, is again hemmed by malefics. But is that really enough to deny a marriage? I don't think so. Uh, so brings me back to that question is like, wait, is the birth time correct? Am I looking at the right Navamsha? Will the Navamsha change, not change, things of that sort? But we'll refrain from digging too deep into that. Now, I said that they're 38 years of age, they've had many relationships. Um, why is the marriage not happened? The planets that are cause for delay are usually the slow moving planets, and out of the slow moving planets, they are the malefic planets. So Mars is not a malefic slow moving planet, it's a malefic fast moving planet, so that doesn't qualify. Saturn is the primary cause of delay because it's a slow moving planet and it's a malefic. Rahu also can delay and Ketu can also delay. But none of these planets influence the seventh house directly. Now, there is a rule in a book of astrology, Fal Dipika. When you read the chapter about analysis of houses, the rule says that if there are malefic planets in 12th, 6th, and 8th position from the house, then the house suffers. And we see that combination show up in this chart. So, like I said, the Bhav Bhavish Karak are just the three easy to spot things in a birth chart. There is also this other rule which applies in this case. Because the 12th, if we make the seventh house the ascendant, if we make the seventh house the ascendant, now the 12th house becomes this, which has a malefic in it, Rahu. The sixth house becomes this, which has three malefics in it. We already saw that. Mercury here is a malefic. It's neutral, but because it is with the Sun, which is a mild malefic, and Ketu, which is a malefic, it becomes a malefic as well. And Saturn is in the eighth house, which is also a malefic. So this is now fulfilling the condition outlined in Faldipika, which talks about the 6, 8, 12 places from any house having malefics causes a problem. I believe in the chapter of marriage or the seventh house also they repeat this rule. You can go read it. The book is called Phal Deepika, Phal Deepika. I could have just sent you a link in the description, but that's the book, right? Um, so again, here that could that be the reason for delay? Could that be the reason for disappointment? Perhaps. Um, it's not a good. The reason why it's not a, let's try to understand. The reason why it's not a good combination to have those malefic planets in those places is because those places already are difficult, right? When malefic planets sit there and when the periods of those malefic planets run, then it destroys um, the target house from where they are sitting in 6, 8, 12. That's why it's not good. Um, so what's happening here? We don't know why this person's not getting married. Um, the clue actually lies in the moon chart. So while we won't fully accept the birth time right now, we haven't completed our analysis yet. So we still have to look at what's happening from the moon sign. And like I said, in this chart, the moon sign is prominent and it becomes important because the moon has such great source of strength. So let's do that. Let's switch this chart now to the moon sign and I can flip it over like that. And now let's see what's going on. So again, we'll analyze the Bhav Bhavish Karak and we will read this moon chart now as if it's a brand new chart. So the first thing that we see when we look at the seventh house in this chart is that Saturn is sitting in the seventh house. Now, I was suspecting that Saturn must be involved some way, and now we see the direct correlation of Saturn here. It's sitting in the seventh house. Simple prediction. When that happens, you can expect delays for marriage. Um, Now its dignity is not bad because it's actually neutral because it sits in a house of an enemy, Mars, and that enemy is two places from itself, so it becomes a temporary friend. Overall dignity becomes neutral. So Saturn with a neutral dignity means that it is able to um, comfortably do what it's supposed to do. In this case, it's comfortably delaying the marriage, if you will, right? Let's see if there are any other influences on the seventh house by aspect, and we see that there is. Rahu also influences the seventh house through its ninth aspect. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, like I said, the two slowest moving planets that are malefic that can aspect the seventh house are aspecting the seventh house, and that now becomes a primary reason for delay. But does that mean that it's a denial? We don't know. Um, is there a positive planet influencing the seventh house? Let's see. Let's try to find, or the seventh lord. Then perhaps there could be a possibility for um, marriage. And in the D1, from the ascendant perspective, we saw that it was good. So that tells me that maybe there is still some opportunity for marriage. Okay. So let's continue our discussion here and look at we've analyzed the house. Let's see what other planet aspects the house to bring positivity. So we see here that a very strong moon, which is a natural benefic planet, aspects the seventh house. So that's a good thing. Now, this moon it's waning. That means that it's coming towards sun, but it's still far away. So I would consider this to be a more positive moon than in malefic moon. Also, it's not associated with any planet. Sorry, no, it is associated with Saturn, but it has Taurus sign, which means it's exalted. So this moon brings a lot of emotional investment into the marriage, and that's probably why this person's thinking about why am I not getting married? What's going on? But the influence on the seventh house by moon is positive, it's not malefic. The other thing we see is to find if Jupiter aspects it. We don't see any aspect of Jupiter. 7, 8, 9. So that's not really anything. Sun, Mercury, Ketu, Venus, Mars don't aspect or influence the seventh house. Next, we have to see the influences and aspect on the seventh lord. So who is the seventh lord here? It changes. It's now Mars. And now we see that Mars goes and sits in the eighth house. Again, we are looking at the moon chart because we didn't analyze that before. And now we see that this is problematic. Mars going into the eighth house means that there is a suffering related to or endings related to the seventh house. We also see that the seventh house itself is afflicted because of Saturn and Rahu's influence. We see that Mars, its lord, goes into the eighth house, which is also an affliction. Um, there is no other influence on Mars, but it being in the eighth house is problem. Okay, so now we are seeing a difficult situation arise from the moon sign. Let's also look at the Karak, fixed Karak, which is Venus for the seventh house. Venus now from the moon chart goes into the sixth house, which is another Dushtana house. So the Lord is in a Dushtana house, the Karak is in a Dushtana house, the house is afflicted. Not a good picture. But Venus again is in the sign, in its own sign. We see that Venus is exalted and then all that. And we know from the ascendant that Venus was in Pap Kartari. Over here also it is in Pap Kartari. So the additional thing that got added onto this and what got taken away is that from the ascendant chart, Venus was actually aspecting the seventh house. So a natural benefic was doing that. Over here, Moon is doing it, but Moon in itself is afflicted due to being um, getting the aspect of Ketu and Saturn. But still, we'll consider it's a soft aspect. So it's going to do um, might protect, but not too much. Moon is not in a very strong state itself. It's a strong moon. That means that its dignity is good, so it'll try to do whatever it can, but not as good as a natural benefic Venus or its own Karaka aspecting it, right? So this situation becomes worse from the moon sign. Now we've seen again to summarize that the seventh house has an influence of both Rahu and Saturn on it, which is the cause of the delay. The Karak is goes and it sits in the sixth house and it's hemmed by malefics, also a cause of delay. The Lord goes into the eighth house, also a cause of delay. The other problem from the ascendant, if we recall, is that the from the ascendant chart, we've got the planets Rahu. We've got malefic in 6, 8, 12 positions from the seventh house. But in here, the good thing is that Venus, the significator, aspects the seventh house. So we haven't looked at the D9. That's what we will. We looked at the D9 as well. In the D9, we saw that the ascendant of the D9 is afflicted by the malefic hemming that we spoke about. I do not consider the aspects in D9. Conjunctions I will take, but aspects I don't take. A lot of people take the aspects also. It's just different styles of reading the chart. Um, so in this case, first factor problematic is that it's hemmed by malefics, but the seventh house is strong because it's got an exalted moon in it. Um, Also, the seventh lord becomes exalted in a trinal position, which is Pisces. The seventh lord is not just the seventh lord, it is the fixed significator of marriage, and it's also the ascendant lord. So I would say, keeping all these factors in mind, the question now becomes, okay, is this person going to fall in a full-time, long-term relationship or not? My answer would be that there is a possibility of them doing that from a physical manifestation, like they may be in wedlock, but emotionally, it's not going to be very, very good because of how we saw the seventh house being disrupted from the moon. Now, the moon's manifestation can also be physical sometimes, so I'm not really sure how it pans out. But if you look at which planet supports this agenda and which planet denies this agenda, we know that Saturn is kind of on the negative side denying it because we saw that from a moon's perspective, Saturn delays. Rahu also was delaying from a moon's perspective, so those two are denying it. Saturn is also denying it here, because it afflicts Venus, which is the Karaka, by malefically hemming it, right? Um, which planets support it? The only planet that supports it is Venus itself, which is good. It's great actually. And the other planet that tries to support it is Moon, because from the Moon's sign, the seventh house gets the aspect of Moon, right? So, and it's a strong Moon. Uh, it's a Taurus Moon. Now, the thing is that we don't necessarily take the aspect of Moon, because in a Moon chart, the Moon is always going to aspect the seventh house of marriage, right? So it's kind of like the perspective doesn't really make sense, because for everybody, their moon sign is going to be where the moon aspects the seventh house. But for everybody, the moon is not in an exaltation position. It's not Vargottama. So that's the source of strength, right? So, not a good picture. The only light here, in my opinion, is Venus. And when this person's Venus period runs, there could be an opportunity to get in wedlock, but we're not discussing the periods in this chart. This session, we are only discussing the static promise. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned something new through this analysis. Like I said, if you have questions, feel free to write them in the comments. You can also email me at grahaveda@gmail.com. You'll find the email in the description below. Like, share, and subscribe. And also, just wanted to remind you that I'm starting my Vedic Fundamentals course again. It's a basic course. You don't need to come prepared with anything. If you'd like to join that, then let me know. You can send me a comment, you can email me, and I will help you get signed up. All right. Okay. Take care. See you in the next video. Thank you.